Record time October 8, 2050, 6:30-21:04 p.m. Status positive. The archiving of the case A53D, the so-called accidents of David Frank, will proceed. Judging from the socioeconomic status of the victim, social context, and public interests, the Bureau classifies the case as an accident and will follow Code 72. The archiving will proceed in the following order. 1. Historical background. 2. Investigation process. 3. Details of the accident. 4. Public assessment. The recording of the current session will be reflected in the details of the accident. All recordings are archived under the consent of the requester.
Two detectives are standing in dim light. In front of them, there is a single chair. A man with a haggard face sits down. He's the requester of the investigation, Vincent Frank. One of the detectives asks Vincent if he wants to be given the details through virtual reality. "I'm sorry, but I'm miserable today. Can I just get some good old PowerPoint slides? Now, I don't think I have the energy to be immersed in the case." The detective explains that they could delete some parts that could trigger him, but Vincent still wants a slideshow. Unfortunately, the slide sources are being used to finish up another part of the archive. The detective suggests that in the meantime, Vincent reviews the historical background section of the archive, as the review of the requester is mandatory. "Okay, but please take out the part about David. I'll just approve it. No questions asked." The archive only consists of public information. In September 12, 2011, the Frank brothers were born in Shelley, an East Coast city. The elder, Vincent Frank, was born 7:04 p.m., and the younger, 7:15. In 2037, Synchro, an IT conglomerate founded by the Frank brothers, was listed in the Dow Jones at the shortest record time. Synchro has commercialized fourth-generation VR technology in their AI management system, moving half of the world's industrial infrastructure to the virtual world. August 13, 2048. Nolia, a Data Valley company near Shelley, suffers large biochemical leakage. On December 7th, with the so-called Great Contamination and the intensified conflict in the Middle East, the power-drained Shelley declares itself bankrupt. The federal government allows citizens to evacuate, but only to designated uncontaminated areas. The mayor, Jonathan McGregor, passed the following countermeasure. A. Tax collection proportional to income level during state of emergency. With the tax and aid from the federal government and companies. Reallocation of all citizens to temporary shelters. B. Shelter conditions identical regardless of income level. C. Regarding fairness, the choice of residential site first given to upper payers. D. Close liaison with Shelley Enterprises for crisis resolution. In 2049, the Frank Foundation alone paid $4 billion for the act. Due to the residential site option being provided according to income level, the refuge area has been divided into two parts. The upper payers in Sector 1 in the center, the so-called donut hole, and the poor in the surrounding Sector 5, also known as the donut glaze. To cut down management costs dramatically, Synchro distributed entry-level VR machines in Sector 5 and introduced a new innovative operating system called CR2TR with the slogan, "Your new OS friend is your sky blue." As a result, the Shelley government made an agreement with Synchro to manage the entirety of Sector 5 through CR2TR for 2 years. In an interview, Vincent Frank talks about what he expects from this innovation. Synchro will create endlessly. When I first put on my Oculus VR headset as a kid, the VR world felt so far away. Now it's right before our eyes. And so is AI. First, we imagined human-like AI, but now our AI has spread out through heaven and earth and has become an ecosystem on its own. Just like God in Genesis. I believe it's important to share its values equally. At 1:37 a.m., October 1st, 2050, David Frank, the younger of the Frank brothers, was attacked by his own circular saw and pronounced dead. Cause of death: excessive bleeding. First, the Bureau assumed suicide, but the same day, a trespass record was discovered in David's digital log. "That's enough. Nothing wrong here," Vincent said. During the review, the sly source completes his job. The detectives are now about to explain the results of the investigation. However, they seem unconfident about their conclusion. Who did it? The detective would rather have him listen to the explanation first. Vincent Frank was a millionaire who made a significant contribution on Shelley's development, and the case is the death of his brother. The Bureau assigned their best police forces on both virtual and real-life investigation, focusing on reconstructing the incidents as precisely as possible. The following is the result of the investigation. The night of the incident, 1:37:50 a.m., Shelley Northeastern Data Center. The police find out that the communication modules of Sector 1 and Sector 5 have switched places. The power protection system had detected the disruption and normalized it within 3 seconds. However, during that 3-second window, 3 communication signals were misclassified. As Sector 5 residents have a hard time accessing VR after sunset, as backup solar batteries drain out, the police assumed that the intruder would be related to these circumstances. A 12-year-old boy named Ezra Yun was identified as the culprit, living a minute away from the Northeastern power plant. With his VR machine not working, the poor boy stumbled upon a poorly secured power plant and messed around with the communication modules. A child stumbled upon? Why would he even care about these modules? The detective points out that the modules resemble the weapons used by heroes in the Netflix original Force Rangers, a show very popular among children. The red and yellow coloring in particular was almost identical. Child mischief. But how does this relate to the case? Please proceed. One of the 3 misclassified signals was related to David Frank. David was a coffee maniac. At the time of the incident, David orders his AI the usual iced Americano, 2 shots in venti. At the exact same time, a trash compactor in rail 3, number 270, in a Sector 5 trash factory started working. The automated command for the machine was detect the nearest Synchro OS device and push towards the wall on which the device is installed. This operation, in turn, completely crushes the trash between the 2 devices. In other words, the order that the machine receives at the start of its operation is to initiate attachment to a nearby Synchro OS device. This order erroneously reaches David's circular saw, which attempts attachment to the nearest Synchro OS device. The device was the Synchro phone that was connected to David's VR machine. 30 seconds later, a cardiac arrest is recorded in his AI log. Same time in Sector 5, John Miller, a night shift worker, notices that his trash compactor isn't working. The coffee order had reached the compactor. The compactor failed to comprehend iced Americano, 2 shots in venti. Wait, that doesn't make sense. There's a reason why we have a central AI process commands. What was it doing? The detective now explains Synchro Central Management AI, CR2TR. The clue is a sabotage aimed at CR2TR, which happened during the night of the incident. The detective asks Vincent how much he knows about the sabotage. Yes, wage dissatisfaction. We immediately contacted the labor union and agreed to a pay raise. Also, the sabotage failed in the first place when the firewall detected the intrusion before they got to the core. However, new findings in the investigation reveals that during the sabotage, CR2TR was temporarily exposed to the dialogue of Synchro employees criticizing Vincent Frank. The exact causality is unknown, but it is reported that at the moment, the output value of the emotion module and the education module of CR2TR had fluctuated considerably. Are you suggesting that the AI heard him talk shit about me and decided to kill my brother? The detective denies. The question is not about why CR2TR committed murder, but about why it didn't take measures to prevent it. Vincent asks what the criticism was. The detective explains that it was about how he was a hypocrite for acting like a philanthropist despite living in Sector 1. He also asked that the sabotage was likely just for show, and that there is 0% chance that the union planned an assassination. But the AI also counts not controlling as a judgment, so if we check the judgment log... Oh, the first day of the month. That's when we clear the logs. The Synchro OS deletes unnecessary data on the first of each month. The detectives have already commissioned experts to restore deleted logs, but they couldn't find a single judgment record at around the time of David Frank's death. The conclusion: there is no culprit in the case. All they could do with the 12-year-old boy is maybe fine their parents for vandalism. CR2TR, being non-human, is outside the law. Even if it's accountable, there is no evidence of direct involvement. CR2TR is omnipresent. The only way to penalize CR2TR would be to regard the incident as an industrial disaster, in which case it might be possible to terminate the AI. But in this view, the defendant of the case would conventionally be the owner of the company that created the AI, Vincent Frank. You do understand that you make no sense, right? The entire city is using Synchro's VR, and judgment records are just blank for minutes? You call this scientific investigation? You're good for nothing. The detective says that he is only a pursuer of the truths, not someone who tells believable stories. If it wasn't for the technology that they already had, the case would be a simple accident. The detectives show their condolences. This is stupid. I'll look into the AI myself. The detective explains that the Bureau cannot stop him from investigating his own property, but also warns that the conversation records could be revealed to the public since he agreed to the archival process. Vincent, enraged, swears and leaves the room.
Dialogue entries have been found in Mr. Vincent Frank's PC at log time 8:23 p.m., October 8, 2015. The details cannot be accessed due to the direct request of Vincent Frank, but the recorded answers of CR2TR is as follows. No. I do not know. No records found. Access denied.
The minister points out the absurdness of the case. The assistant replies, "Yes, we defined it as an accident. Though it was a coincidence of improbable events, the archive shows the investigation process in great detail and gives a sensible explanation as to why we concluded the case with no culprit. The minister asks the public opinion. Another assistant replies, "The public is confused. Until the conclusion, the media considered the case as a rich-poor conflict. After the publishment, conspiracy theories started gaining traction around some influencers and creators." The assistants explain the conspiracy theories. Some view this as a property dispute between siblings. Some scream killer AIs. Some say this is a sign of revolt from Sector 5. In Sector 5, they say this will be an excuse for Sector 1 to oppress them even more, and that the Bureau is trying to cover up the incident. The minister does not understand why the public sees this as a class conflict, despite the police's explanation. He ponders for a while and asks if there are any measures they could take. The assistant answers, "Dealing with the conspiracy theories may upset them more. We're just monitoring the situation for now." "Well, nothing serious will happen. Maybe some hate speech here and there." "Yes, there is just not enough motivation." The minister says that the Bureau at least tried to accurately explain the incident and that there is not more they can do at the moment. He suggests they conclude the conference. Suddenly, the secretary comes rushing in, reporting out of breath. "Sorry to interrupt you. I got a report that there were 3 more saw accidents in Sector 1. The minister looks at him, dazed and confused. He asks, "Who did it?"